Hey Trailblazers, welcome back to SFTC Quest. In the previous video, we have seen how to call a Apex class from our prompt template. Now we are doing the vice versa, which is how to call a prompt template from Apex. So you might be using this one in case if you want to populate certain fields on an object where you want to get the input from the prompt template. That is where this is would be used. In case if you have an LWC component where you have to generate some information using the grounding data that you're passing to the prompt template, get that response from the template and present it on the UI using your LWC component. That is where also this process of calling your prompt template from Apex would come into picture. Without any delay, let's get started in terms of seeing how we can leverage this feature. I'm switching to the Salesforce org. So as a part of our demo, what we'll be using is we'll be using this case which says laptop heating issue, and we'll be creating a prompt template. We'll be seeing a prompt template which basically utilizes the information on this case, and our main goal is to return that response back to the Apex class where it can be used elsewhere as per our requirement. Now I'll quickly walk you through the prompt template first. In case if you have missed out how to create a prompt template, feel free to check out the video that I'll be presenting in the top right corner. So this is my prompt template that I have created, which is of type flex type. I've made sure that this prompt template is very simple here. And what I did was I've asked the prompt template to summarize this case by using the record snapshot feature. And I've asked the prompt template to basically summarize on the case comments. Few things to remember as a part of the next discussion. So I've created the template with the name case summary generator. This is the API name for it. And it takes an input called case obj. So this is the input that this prompt template would require to give us an output. So to real quick test this feature, what I'll do is I'll just pass the case number that we can use for testing. The same case that we have looked at previously, which is 1028. I'll just pass this one in here, select it, click on preview. This is the output that we are getting in here. It says this is the case number of type medium priority and it was created on this date. And I passed a comment saying that what is an update on this one. So this is the case summary in along with the case comment summary that we are getting in here. I want to leverage this information on the Apex. In order to do that, make sure that you create this prompt template first. Make sure this is active too. Once you're satisfied, move on to the next phase, which is developing an Apex class. So I'll switch back to the developer console in here. So what I did was I've created a class called call prompt template from Apex just for understanding. And I'll share this code in the video description. You can refer this one in case if you need this code in the future purpose. And I've created a method which basically takes the input as ID. And I'll come back to this one in some time from now. And it is returning the type as string. So remember the output that we are getting here is a string which basically has a good information and description. So I've created it as a string in here. Now, in order to call the prompt template from Apex, it is a 4-step process. First step is to prepare your inputs mentioned in your prompt template as the input parameter. Like I've called out earlier, our prompt template basically takes the input as case obj. So make sure that you are getting this one correctly while you're preparing this first part. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating a map called case map, and I am passing the ID as a string. If you see the parameter that we have here is a string, and the ID that I'm also is being marked as string in here. So basically what we are trying to do here is we are trying to create a map which takes the key as ID and the actual value as the case ID that we are passing. So hence I've taken the input for this method as ID. So whoever calls this method would pass the case ID in here. You might be wondering, we have created it as a case obj, and in our Apex class, we are just taking an ID. The beauty of this entire process is you just need to pass the ID and you don't have to pass the parameters that you have individually referred in here. Rest all taken care by Salesforce itself. Now, this is your part one of your first step. Second part is building the things that we need. So this entire process is to build your input parameters that has been accepted by your prompt template in the way it takes, in the format it basically expects it. So hence we are using the concept called connect API.wrapper wrapped value. It basically is of type object. So hence we are passing it as a map in here. So you can refer to this connect API.wrapper value, or you can simply search for whatever the classes that have been used here. You can simply search in the Google, and that is where you will see get the results, and you can check for the type that it is expecting. So it is required and it is of type object. So I'm passing the value that we have created, which is of type map in here. So case value dot value is a case map wherein which we have created the map connection, which is ID as a key and the case key as a value, case ID as a value. Now, once that is done, what I'm doing next is now associating the parameter that we have in the prompt template with whatever that we have built so far. Till this point, we're just building the value that can be accepted by our prompt template. We're just doing that in the building process here. Now what I'm doing, I'm associating it, saying connect API.wrapper value. This is the value, and I've marked it as input params. Now I'm building a map again here, which says input params dot input dot case object as an key here, and the case value is the value that we have built above. Now, if you see here, this is the value which holds the ID and the case ID. And this is been associated with the value that we have in the prompt template. This is the important step that you need to make sure you're not misplacing the, or you're making a mistake in writing this name in here, or else the entire functionality would be broken. Make sure that you write input, and this is the input that you have mentioned in here. It is the API name that you need to make sure that you copy and paste it here. Now, what has happened so far is our prompt template parameter has been secure, that we know what is the value that is going in. That brings us to the end of the step number one. Now, what is the step number two here? Step number two is basically telling the prompt template what are the execution settings that we need. In short, you can, so for the prompt template to basically execute, it needs couple of understanding in terms of what we are expecting as an output. So if you see this entire section, it talks about the additional configurations that we need. In the additional configuration steps, we are basically setting the prompt builder preview. Is preview, we are setting it to false. What are the input parameters that we are passing in here? So the entire idea is here is association. Here we are basically setting that as a values. Now, as a part of our step two, we have told what are the parameters or what are the things that the prompt template would require. It's like tweaking the settings for our prompt template. On step number three is the important thing again in terms of associating our prompt template name with this parameters that we have built so far. If you see here, whatever that was built in step number one is been consumed in your step number two. Whatever that we are building in step number two is been consumed in your step number three. So this Einstein prompt template generate representation basically is a call to our prompt template. Here is the place where we would say, this is my prompt template, and whatever the parameters that I set so far should be going into this prompt template. So copy this API name, pass it as your first parameter. Make sure that you are getting the API name in here. And in the second part, pass the parameters that you have set up in your step number two. So our main job is done in terms of calling our prompt template with the necessary parameters and the settings. Now is the step number 4. We would extract the response or expect the response from our prompt template. So till this point, we have set the input parameter. In step number 2, we have tweaked the settings. Step number 3, we have placed a call. In step number 4, we are getting a response. So connect API.Einstein LLM generate item output would give us a response. And this response is something that we are getting in from here because this is the place where we have made a call. So take this generation output, or in this case, you can just name it anything. I've just made it as generations output dot generations of 0, and then get that response, and dot text would basically give the response that you are getting in your prompt template normally. So this is the expected response. In case if your response from your prompt template is little different from the response that you see here, that is expected because you cannot expect the same response from your multiple runs of your prompting or your prompt response. So in case if I run this prompt for multiple times, you might not see the same output here. Similarly, here also it is the same thing. Do not compare this output with this output line by line. It might have the general summary, but you might not get the exact output in your multiple runs. So what I'm doing here is I'm just printing out this response that I got. Using this response that I got, I'm just returning that value as a string. So that is the entire explanation in terms of how you can invoke your prompt template from your Apex. This is time to test the setup that we have. I'm using the anonymous window. I'm using the class name dot method name because it's a static method. And I'm passing the ID that we were using in here because my method basically takes a input as an ID. So whatever the apprehensions that we have, would it work or not if I just pass an ID? Let's keep that to test. So I'll select the line and click on execute highlighted. So I'm not interested in other things. I'm just interested in the output. So if you see the output in here, the prompt response that we have in here on line number 29, prompt response. So what is the prompt response that we have? Here it is, line number 29, prompt response. The case identified by this ID pertains to laptop heating issue. This is the case number owned by this one, and so on and so forth. All right. So this is how you can basically capture your response from your prompt template in your Apex. Now, once you have it in the Apex, it is up to you how you want to utilize it. You can call it from your LWC component. You can call it from your trigger. You can call it from your flow. From there, it is up to you how you want to utilize this information in your RESTAll process. I hope you have liked this video. If you have liked this video, like, share, and subscribe. Stay tuned for more such videos.